When a severe pest infestation hits, the immediate instinct of a modern farmer is survival. To avoid a failed harvest and the debt that follows, they spray potent chemicals to kill the bugs and save their livelihood. But surviving the pests comes at a high price. The crop might live, but the resulting harvest is laced with chemicals, and the surrounding ecosystem is sterilized. This diagram illustrates a biological alternative called rice-fish co-culture, replacing heavy chemicals with a closed-loop ecosystem. Instead of spraying poison, farmers install agricultural UV lamps throughout the fields. At night, these lights lure flying pests away from the crops and directly into the water, turning an infestation into high-protein live feed for golden-back hawa carp. The second half of the cycle is just as efficient. The fish consume the pests, and their waste serves as a natural fertilizer for the rice. As they swim, they stir up the mud and purify the water, removing the need for synthetic chemicals. By stepping away from the chemical treadmill, farmers replace a recurring, destructive expense with a self-sustaining biological engine that pays for itself. The market results reflect the difference in quality. When heavily sprayed grain goes to commercial buyers, it regularly fails safety checks. In one village, a harvest tested 8 times over the legal pesticide limit, forcing farmers to sell their entire year's crop for industrial use at a fraction of its value. Meanwhile, the eco-fields running the closed-loop system produce clean, chemical-free grain alongside thousands of pounds of highly sought-after organic carp. Seeing the financial difference, farmers in this village pooled 500 acres of their land together. They formed an ecological agriculture cooperative with a zero-tolerance policy, absolutely no chemical fertilizers and no pesticides allowed. But refusing to buy agricultural chemicals triggers an immediate corporate backlash. By entirely cutting out pesticides, the cooperative directly threatens the profits of regional chemical suppliers like the Dingfong Group, who rely on those recurring annual sales. A successful, unified eco-farm does more than just produce food. It provides a model for other towns to follow, challenging the market dominance of established chemical providers. The chemical supplier retaliated fast. They hired thugs to pour quick-drying concrete directly into the reservoir's main sluice gate, sealing it shut and entirely cutting off the village's water supply. With 500 acres of high-density aquaculture baking in the sun, the fields would dry out and the fish would be dead by noon. The only available fresh water was now physically trapped behind a 5-meter-high mountain ridge. To save their harvest, the village used a core concept of fluid dynamics. This diagram shows the siphon principle, connecting the high-level water reservoir over the mountain to the lower-level rice fields using a continuous PVC pipe. They laid thickened, pressure-resistant pipes over the ridge and sealed both ends underwater. Then they used a high-horsepower diesel pump to suck all the air out of the pipe, creating a vacuum inside. Nature hates a vacuum. With the air gone, the weight of the Earth's atmosphere pushes down on the surface of the reservoir. That invisible atmospheric pressure forces the water up the pipe, over the ridge, and down into the fields without needing a continuous power source. Applied correctly, basic physics can bypass physical sabotage and corporate blockades. When physical sabotage failed, the corporation turned to biological tactics. They bought up every healthy fish fry in the entire province, aiming to starve the cooperative of the biological component they needed for the season. Just as the village grew desperate, a mystery vendor from out of state arrived in a tanker truck. He offered them a perfectly timed, heavily discounted batch of 100,000 fry to supposedly save their harvest. But a healthy ecosystem requires strict biosecurity. Instead of releasing the new fish directly into the flowing agricultural water, the cooperative enforced a rigid 48-hour quarantine, unloading the fry into isolated, dry cement ponds far away from the main fields. This grid simulates what a laboratory test quickly revealed. The discounted fry were intentionally infected with the koi herpes virus, a highly lethal pathogen with a 95% mortality rate in high-density aquaculture. The goal was total destruction. If those fish had entered the main fields, the virus would have killed the current crop and penetrated deep into the soil, ruining the village's entire water system for years to come. In interconnected biological systems, rigorous scientific testing and strict quarantine protocols are the only reliable defenses against engineered ecological collapse. Assuming the virus had turned the village into a rotting swamp, the corporate boss arrived with a team of influencers. He intended to live stream the devastation and frame the cooperative as an irresponsible scam. But when the cameras started rolling, they captured 500 acres of pristine, flowing water and entirely healthy crops. The village had neutralized the infected batch and seeded their fields with their own locally bred, disease-resistant backup fry. Confronted by the reality in front of him on live camera, the corporate boss completely lost his temper. In the heat of the moment, he inadvertently shouted a full confession to the sabotage and the viral attack, while millions of people watched online. By attempting to weaponize public opinion, the regional distributor provided the evidence that ultimately ended its influence over the town's farming community. That exposure brought a wave of consumer demand for the cooperative's clean products and secured long-term research backing from a provincial agricultural university. The status quo of heavy chemical reliance is marketed as a shortcut to higher yields, but it often operates as a cycle of recurring debt. Farmers end up paying a premium for products that can degrade the natural fertility of their own land. Biological farming turns the ecosystem into a self-sustaining asset rather than a battleground. When supported by community unity and rigorous science, ecological farming provides a stable, profitable system that allows farmers to operate outside the cycle of recurring chemical debt.